production, there has to be a lot of pushing from the producer. And if you don't have that trust relationship built where it's like they know that you're making great choices for them, not for you, you're not going to be able to get them to where you need to go. So for me, I try to approach it with a level of like, this is going to be a really vulnerable experience for them, no matter what type of song we're making. And they could be very scared about doing this. They could be very excited, but how can we get this in like a really open dialogue to be like, I want to make the best thing that you have in your mind. So creating that from the start has been really important for me. And I don't think I would have come with that, sort of knowledge had I not been an artist myself and had I not sat on the couch behind me being an artist, you know, with another producer that really did care about my input and what I wanted to do. It wasn't just, let me just funnel this out, another paycheck, you know, that's just not the way I want to do things.
Wow. I have so many thoughts about what you just said.
Yeah.
It's like, it's interesting the way you said that. It's like the checking in every few days and making sure they're cool with it. Like I'm thinking to like my productions of like stuff that I haven't been super stoked about, like not checking in with them and, you know, like avoiding that, you know, like that's, I think having that, you know, the guts to be open about everything and checking in and just like constantly being top of, you know, having that artist top of mind is like, there's a lot behind that, you know?
I mean,
a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I just finished a record with an awesome artist, and we were to the last song on the record in mixing, and she wanted to stop by the studio one day to have a chat. And she's one of those where it's like we have a very open relationship and how we talk to each other, and like I really try to push her as much as I can, and she also pushes me as a producer, and if she doesn't like something, she vocalizes it. And so I knew when she was going to stop by the studio on like the last couple of days of mixing that like this isn't going to be a normal hangout conversation. And and she sat on the couch and we were talking for 2-3 hours because she brought up that she didn't feel like the drums were right on a song. Like it just wasn't good. She like didn't like it. Like it wasn't what she thought it was when she was writing in the room. And so the funny thing about it is like that was a song that I came in on only as a producer, not a songwriter. And from the voice memo demo that I heard, the production was leaning towards a different groove than what it was on the day they wrote it. So in her entire time that she was hearing the song back, she thought it was supposed to be a 4 on the floor thing, where to me, I heard it as more of like a driving thing, you know, super snare heavy sort of thing. But she heard it as a boom, ka, boom, ka, boom, ka. Just that's the way they wrote it. And so it's hard to kick that demo-itis out of your head when you're an artist. But I built the entire production around it being a really driving song. So being the last couple of days of mixing, could be a devastating conversation as a producer. I mean, you could be like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to be able to rebuild this? And the conversation we had was like, yeah, if you're not happy, like let's pull it apart. Like there's no rush. Let's make this right. And so all it turned out to be when it came down to the end of it was just that there was too much high end in the drums in the mix, and she was hearing way too much cymbal that was driving against it. And that
really,
which is an easy fix. You know what I mean? That's just something that I can dive in the mix and dial down on the drum bus real quick, or even just lower the overheads in certain sections where it felt off. But had I been in a position where my ego was taking over, I would have responded poorly to that. The artist wouldn't have felt heard, and I would have given myself probably 2 weeks more worth of work trying to hunt down a new part and a new drummer and like getting everything done, when all she wanted was just to have the high end dimmed down a little bit on the drums. But it just took getting through that conversation of like, when you brought the demo in, I heard it this way. And you have it, and your mindset is this way, and neither of us are wrong, but what's the best way to serve the song? Like, how is this in its best form? So, I mean, that went through iterations of like when she was in the room being like, okay, let me program something out real quick and see what it would sound like if we did it that way. And she realized she didn't like it. But if my ego was caught up in it, she never would have been settled, and that song would have came out and she wouldn't have felt like promoting it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, we can get so caught up in the minutia of, oh, well, I just got to get this done. I got to get this done. But, you know, you don't know what that artist had to sacrifice to even get into the room with you. You don't know what odd jobs they had to work and what they had to say no to so that they could record this piece of music and a song that means so much to them. So you for damn sure got to do everything you can to serve that. That's just the way I view it, man.
Totally. That's amazing. First of all, love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Are you a perfectionist? Do you think you're a perfectionist?
I'm not. I'm not. I definitely have high standards for myself, and I've got an awesome assistant named Parker who came on board about a year ago. To when I leave the studio at night, he edits majority of my sessions, so he'll go in and draw fades and make sure everything's cleaned up. And if there's stems that need to be printed for artists and stuff like that, there's definitely standards that we have in place, and he's so good at being kind of my dude that checks and balances things that sometimes I won't catch at the end of a day, where I'll leave the studio and be like, my ears are super tired, and be like, next day when I get into the studio, I have notes on being like, hey, you might want to go check this, and this. There's something with this file that didn't seem exactly right. And so having someone else on board that can get me at what I want to be at my best has been so helpful.
Wow.
So I'm not,
was it hard to find an assistant? Like, what was that like?
Oh, dude, it was actually the most amazing thing. So my buddy Wes Harley is an amazing songwriter and producer. And he has been a friend of mine since probably 2013, 2014. I met him when he was on the road and he played a show in South Florida. And we had a really great friendship since then. And as Wes got further into his career and as I got further into mine, we both kind of send work each other's way. So if I have something that's a little bit more Wes's way, I send it his way, and likewise, we kind of have the open relationship. Sure. And so I got a call from Wes one day and he's like, hey, I just met this guy named Parker. And he reminds me a lot of you when you first moved to town, and when I first moved to town, man, I had no friends, broke as hell, like barely getting by in my terrible first house in East Nashville. And like, but I was out there hustling, trying to, meet people and make friends and work as much as I could. And he saw that same thing in Parker and he's like, you need to go meet Phil. So Parker came into the studio and I had him shadow me for a couple months while I was working later into the evenings. And so he would stay for a couple hours and he would kind of watch everything I was doing. And whenever he had a question, he would ask me. And I realized, after doing this for a couple months, I'm like, he's learned the way that I do everything. Like, he knows the way that I approach production. He knows the way I approach editing and mixing. So, I mean, this could only be a benefit if he has been impressioned by the way that I do things, that maybe he could come on board. And so we tried it out for a few weeks. And man, that was one of the best decisions that I made, was to bring him on board and hire him to really help me keep the studio going when I'm not here and allow me to have a little bit of a life when I'm not. I for so long, when I first moved to town, I was working, 18, 20 hour days in the studio and going to sleep and then coming back and working. And that was important for me to develop a skill set, but it was not healthy in the long run. So thankfully having two people doing that, where it's like, I'm working on the tangible, artist facing part of the work, where it's like we're in the room together creating something, or I'm mixing, and then Parker's just helping me tie the bow on everything and make sure it's great and make sure files get delivered to clients in a stellar way and that everything sounds awesome and is all backed up. Super important.
Yes, back it all up.
Oh gosh, yes.
Listeners, back your stuff up all the time, often.
Often in 3 different places, please.
Yes, exactly. Always back up, always many places. Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And also it gives you like probably so much space to just be creative and just like, not have your mind in all the technical things all the time.
Exactly. The joy that I had the first couple of days coming into the studio and being like, oh, all my sessions are like color coded and beautiful and they all have fades drawn. It was just like, I was so thankful because I was just able to pull up faders and just have fun. And so that's definitely been a blessing. And I definitely like see our relationship, Parker and I, continuing to work together for years, if that's something he wants to continue to do, because I think he'll blossom into a producer that is just next level in every way in his own right. But for that time being that he's here and he's part of my life, I want to continue to integrate him into, being an assistant engineer and like seeing how, when I'm here with an artist working all day and we go to break for lunch and go get a coffee, how can Parker hop in and get the ball rolling while we're gone, so that when we come back, the artist is still super inspired and we can just immediately, all the BGVs are all taken care of and tucked and we can just start mixing. You know what I mean? That would be so helpful. So, I mean, those are all early thoughts that I'm starting to have of like how I can bring a bigger role in with him being a part of the team. But yeah, he's aware of that, and I'm really excited to hopefully get that going in the next few months to a year.
At what stage of someone's career do you think is it a good move to like bring on an assistant?
That's tough. As soon as you can afford it, I would say.
Yes. Okay.
You know,
cool.
as soon as you can go, I have a little bit of extra money in here that I'm not going to spend on gear that can, I would say this, if you value your time at X number of dollars per hour and you can hire someone to be able to come in and work on that when you're not able to, and it is either equal to or you're making money off of having someone in there, it makes sense to hire somebody to come help you out. So that's a super
Perfect.
businessy approach to that. But for me, when I first brought on Parker, man, it was a stretch. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford this. But I was like, I know my life will be better because of it. So let me try it and we'll see if it works. And dude, the amount of work that has come in just off me being able to be out and about more and being creative and just being able to be present with artists in the room the next day rather than being exhausted has been worth every single dollar it's cost, you know?
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'd say as soon as you can afford it, or if you're friends with, or if you're near a music college, or you're near anybody that is super into music and you know they're younger and you know you can help them out by them being a part of your story, see if they want to do it and even intern for free until you can afford to pay them. I do think people should be paid for their work. Absolutely. But if someone is just starting out, you know, maybe you both kind of work out a relationship where you can enhance each other's abilities a little bit better.
Amazing. Do you have any rituals or routines that you do to either get or stay inspired?
I'm pretty ritualistic and routine based as a person, as a whole. So I kind of wake up at the same time every day. I eat breakfast the same time every day. I drive to the studio at the same time every day. I have sessions that are set up the same way every single day. So for me, the more decisions that I can take out of my day, it allows me to be more creative as a producer. So I know what my calendar is going to look like next week. And I also know what my calendar is going to look like a year from now. It's just changing on who gets placed into that window of time. You know, when artists come to work with me, like we're working from 11 to 6 that day. Like it's not a mystery of like, maybe we'll start at 3 and go till who knows. Like I'm not that type of person where I can't function outside of having something steady in my life. And my fiance would not very much enjoy me working until midnight every night with a different artist, you know, like it would just get a little bit ridiculous. But for me, what's most sustainable allows me to better serve my clients. So if I'm in a good place and I know that I've done what I need to in the morning, I feel taken care of and I feel like I really looked out for what I need to be healthy that day, I can be a superstar for my clients. But if I don't take care of myself, it shows. And that might just be me, but I can't be Superman if I haven't taken care of myself.
Yeah, the self-care, or it's like the airplanes, right? Where you have to pull down your air mask before you help someone else.
It's so real, man.
Totally. So, you know, obviously we're living through slightly crazy times now with the coronavirus, COVID-19. Like, what's happening in your world? How is this affecting you? What are you trying to do to kind of like stay productive and, if you want to, I guess, through this thing? Yeah,
dude, it's a really timely question. I think there's a lot of questions up in the air as to how people that are in the writing community and production community, specifically in Nashville, and I'm sure elsewhere, can continue to work when things are freaking crazy. You know what I mean? Like just looking around at everything is difficult as is, but trying to keep up with what has been such a in-person type of business for me, of like working with writers in this room and then working with artists in this room, has been really challenging. And there are some great resources to remote track, but the vibe is not there. I've experienced, you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've tried doing some remote sessions that have been like, oh, I can track someone in an online DAW, or I can, we'll work on something collaborative and they'll send me stems. And for me, with my entire working relationship is just based on artists being in the room. So it's honestly been really challenging for me. That being said, most of the clients that I had booked to do production were just rolling back the dates. So we're just being like, okay, we were supposed to work in April. We're working in May or June now. And unfortunately, as it stands right now, that has to be an open-ended answer. You know, right. Because we don't know when things are going to clear up or be any bit sustainable to be in the room again. So it might be 2 months from now that we get into the room. It might be 3 or 4. It might be 6, you know.
Right.
But
God only knows, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I've been rolling back what I was supposed to have in the room for another couple months. And then hopefully we'll be in a place where at least a couple of us can be in the room or something, and then we'll go from there. But I've been filling my time with a lot of back end sessions that just haven't been top priority. with clients being in the room. So there's been a lot of demos that I've had for songs that I've written in the past year that